Our presentation is about Ellis Island. We went last week and took a tour, and we're going to describe some of the things that we found out. First, Race and I talk about the process, what it was like for the immigrant to go to Ellis Island, and then Melissa talk about her family experience doing research into her background. Okay, so let's go to Race first. Hi, I'm going to talk about the first part of the going through Ellis Island, the different stages that the immigrant had to go through. Okay, first, one important thing to remember is that Ellis Islands were only used for the poorest immigrant, the third class passenger. The first and the second class passenger were processed on the ship. Then were they taken to the dock when they got off, and then the ship was still onto Ellis Island with the third class passengers still on board. When they finally landed at Ellis Island, they put on all the clothes they owned because they were allowed to bring in only one bag with a possession from their own country. People brought in all kind of things like you will see musical instrument or samovars, pots for making tea. Some people brought earth from their own country too, or plants, for example, for growing grapes. Then the first lady they got to work that was the dining hall. That it would give in a meal that it would pay for by a steamship company. People who came to Ellis Island always remember the meal. The food was quite good, but was apparently quite good, but was also strange for many of them. Some people had never tasted ice cream or seen orange or banana, and then after that, the inspection began, and Arnie going to tell you about that part. Arnie, thank you. Okay. After the meal, the passenger would leave her bag and go to the staircase to the great hall. And as they walked past, the inspector would watch them carefully to see if they were weak or sick. If someone was sick, they would send them to the hospital. There was a hospital in Ellis Island as well until they got better. There was also detained. There also was detained children, young women, and old people traveling along. About 20% of people were held back, often for health reasons, but most were released after a day or two, or when someone came to pick them up. In the great hall, they waited in line for hours, sometimes as long as 5 hours. They were crowded together and often very hot and very loud, you can imagine. As many as 2,000 people, all talking in so many languages. Then, when they finally got to the top of the line, the inspector asked them questions like, where you come from, where you going, is somebody waiting for you? That kind of thing. And there were the social worker and interpreter waiting with inspector like helping people who needed to locate relatives or whatever. Once they got past that part, the questions, people would go into one of three lanes behind the inspectors. The first lane was for the detention center if you were being held back. The second lane was for the railroad ticket office, for the train station. And the third lane was down to the stair to the area where people are waiting. There was a post there that was called the kissing post, because that was the scene of so many reunions. Husband met a wife and father met a children they haven't seen in years, and then after that, and then the immigrant went off to start a new life. So now I'm gonna let Melissa talk about her family experiment chasing the ancestor. Well, my great grandfather came in from Ireland, and my aunt Jo actually used Ellis Island record to do research and find out where she came from. So I'm gonna talk a bit about that. Basically, what I have at Ellis Islands is a ship. Basically, what I have at Ellis Islands is it's a ship record and immigration information of every arriving passenger with like the date of the cayman, the age, and the town the town they come from. So if you know, for example, your ancestor name, the year they arrived, or where he or she came from, you can look them up. So that's what we did. My aunt Jo wanted to know more about her grandfather. My great grandfather, he died before I was born, but apparently he was a great musician. He played a fiddle and sang at a family event. Well, John knew that he come from Cork in Ireland, but she didn't know where in Cork because he came to the because he never spoke about it. So John went to the Ellis Island record, and and she found my great grandfather's name, and it is the name of the town where she came from. So she went to the island and visited the town a couple of years ago. She got more information when she was there, and a friend and eventually, she found that a living relative, a cousin, he didn't. She had that she didn't. She befriend that she didn't. She had. It was great because she always wanted to know more about her grandfather, where her grandfather come from. So that's what all we have time for. But we hope that you enjoyed our presentation. Thank you.